it comes to Fatal Fury, there's one character you want to play is the key grappler of the game, and that being Tizoc. But what's up fellas, my name is Patriarch Panda, and today I'm going to be hitting you with a Tizoc guide to teach you how to play the character. If you've seen my previous guides, I tend to go in depth and try to teach you some good leverage to the game, and try to get some good coverage of the character, defense mechanics, offense, combos, and strategies to get in and rank your 50-50s. There will be a ton of detail in this. It's supposed to be a guide that you can keep coming back to. You don't have to watch all in the one sitting, of course. You don't use different strategies for different parts of your games. But yeah, be sure to like and subscribe as I'm trying to have 3k subs to make a Taker video. I don't like Taker, it'd be funny to make. That's about it. But yeah, let's get into why you want to play Tizoc and his strengths and weaknesses. That way you understand what you're getting into when you pick up this character. Tizoc being the core by body grappler that are appealing to most that like to play characters like Zangief, for example. Tizoc being a wrestler uses his grabs to open people up for big damage. If you love wrestling like WWE, AEW, or the Japanese scene, which I'm not too educated on, this is the character for you. If you like characters that are big and slow and use special moves to mix up your approaches, this is also the character for you. And if you like a character where you have to genuinely get good at defense instead of relying on a DP to get out of scenarios, this is another character that you're going to have to practice with. But yeah, here's some things that you do need to practice if you want to pick up Tizoc. I recommend getting used to your dash. Compared to others, he does a little hop forward. The thing about this dash is that it's not cancelable like the other dashes of this game, meaning it's fully committal. And because he has the most unique dash in the game, you gotta get used to that. If you do not get used to that, it'll cost you games. I also recommend getting used to 360 inputs. These inputs are not easy by any standards if you're picking up a fighting game for the first time. And getting used to these inputs will be a massive deal for you to learn and improve and learn how to play Tizoc to a very high regard. And to do this input, I'll try and make it simple for you. You want to do a half circle from left to right. Kind of go left to right, as the kids say, 4, 1, 2, 3, 6. And then you want to do a rainbow in reverse. So you want to go from the right side to left and press punch on where you started. That is how you're able to do a 360, and if you're quick enough, you can do it standing without any form of buffer, meaning you're pretty sick and nasty when it comes to inputs. This is something that's worth practicing for those easy mix-ups. But let's get into strengths and weaknesses. These are important to learn, that way when you hop into Tizoc, you understand the full package. In terms of strengths, he has high damage, combos lead to a ton of damage, and his EX throw also deletes a third of the opponent's health, meaning you land one of these, you only gotta land 2 more. A strong 50-50, changing between strike and throw. If you do strike, you can deal a ton of damage, or you can go simple, but keep the corner pressure, and if you go throw, you get a ton of damage with that unblockable attack, and put the opponent in a dire scenario. Like I said, you land 3 of these, you kill them. He has a strong feint game. He's a character that you can feint in your normals like everybody else, and it leads to huge plus frames, but the main thing that makes him really good is that you can feint lariat and tools like his elbow drop to either make space or take space. His pokes are also really good. Standing heavy kick being a main note, and of course standing heavy punch being another main note, makes it very good, and as well as his tools like beak, make him kind of formidable to play a poke game against if he has to play against someone that doesn't use projectiles. But on to his weaknesses. He can feel slow to play. He's very slow compared to the rest of the cast, probably the slowest character to learn, so if you don't like that, probably not worth it. He has a tough time against zoners. What does this mean? Characters that shoot projectiles are the bane of your existence, so playing this character into that, not too fun, so you do want to get used to that nightmare. Not having a DP on defense is a big deal. A ton of characters have a DP on defense that allow them to escape a corner scenario with an invincible wake up option, meaning they cannot be hit. However, if you block it, you can punish it. Tizoc does not have this unless you want to commit 1 bar to escape the corner with his big spin fall throw. And the final thing that you need to get used to is that defense has an execution barrier. That's right, you have to get used to defending well with Tizoc and learn how to do just defend guard cancels. I'll be getting into that much later, but point being, his defense will be an absolute nightmare if you do not learn how to do it well. But yeah, let's get started with the guide. Now that you know everything about Tizoc and the things that you want to play about him and the strengths and weaknesses and how to play into that, let's talk about your neutral and the tools that you'll be using as your pokes and get-ins. To begin, let's talk about your neutral mindset. When you're playing neutral, you want to read the habits of your opponent. It's like you're playing poker. You have to be able to call out a bluff, look for opportunities to represent your tools to approach, or to avoid attacks to get yours in. Fireballs are your enemy, so using these tools as intended you can get past the onslaught of projectiles, you also want to use big pokes to deny get-ins as well. So you want to check get-ins and try get-in yourself. Making sure the enemy doesn't get in is something that you have to look out for as Tizoc, because if they get in, you're stuck in a horrible defensive situation. And if you're able to get in, they're stuck in a horrible defensive situation. Heavy Kick, or known as 5D, Heavy Kick is a solid poke that covers good space. This tool is really good because you want to use it as a whiff punisher. What does that mean? It means that you're hitting someone for whiffing a tool. This can either be a preemptive play like a read, or a reactive play where you do it on reaction in the moment. But yeah, you can also mix up the timing of this move to make it harder to whiff punish for your opponent by charging it by pressing back Heavy Kick. This is good because it means you're harder to hit as you're hitting the opponent trying to hit you. It's a bit of a mind game tool, but it's really good for covering great screenage, and it's actually fairly safe on block, so if you mess up the timing, you're all good. Use this to shut down approaches, but you will lose to jump-ins. That's something that you do have to be careful about using this tool, is that using it too much will lead to opponents jumping in and taking their turn. You can also get really good combos in the Wild Punish, but that'll be in a later section that you can skip to with the chapters. Again, this guide is meant to go back and forth, like wherever you want to go, as long as you learn. Heavy Punch, or also known as 5C. Heavy Punch can be charged just like Heavy Kick. The only difference is that it's more plus and covers a little bit more of that airspace the Heavy Kick doesn't. But yeah, this tool is great for preemptive checks like 5D, and this can check tools like Crack Shrew, which is Terry's get-in where he does a flip kick. Any other jumping approach tool can be difficult to hit, but if you're able to space it well, you can actually fairly decently anti-air people try to jump in front of you rather than jumping on you. This move is also specially cancelable, so you get to do EX Lariat on hit. This is super important as it leads to a ton of damage. You can also do feints if you don't think you're going to hit, allowing for a 50-50 opportunity. This tool is great for checking the opponent for far and wide, but do be careful because whiffing this will allow the opponent to get a get-in opportunity. So you want to use it well, use it precise. Beak, which is Tizoc's anti-air tool, is actually a pretty funny tool that you don't want to use as an anti-air 9 times out of 10. So Beak, aka Crouching 5C Rev, is an insane neutral tool that covers a ton of options. It can go under some fireballs, play around a ton of long reach and normals, and jump-ins. On block, it's safe as well unless you're very up close, and on whiff, it's also fairly safe being hard to whiff punish. Now the great thing about this tool is that on whiff or on block, you won't do your special move. What does this mean? It means that you can do your special move no matter what is your follow-up special cancel, and it is guaranteed on hit, and if it's blocked it doesn't come out, meaning you're back to neutral. It's a fairly safe tool and does a ton of good work and doesn't really have many weaknesses besides that it can also lose to anti-airs. So you want to be chill with this tool, but you want to represent it a good amount, that way the opponent has to think twice and try to use more sweeps to deny you, meaning you can use more elbows. You see, it begins to flicker. This tool also beats Rev Blows, so use that if people are being very oppressive. Rev Blow will absolutely run a show on you if you do not represent this anti-air tool with Tizoc. When it comes to Standing Punch, it's a long-reaching jab, but it cannot be linked into itself. So you want to kind of use this as kind of like an anti-air poke when they're in front of you, and you kind of want to use it as a stop poke, like I'm checking the opponent for their dash, and I don't want to commit to a 5C or a 5D, so representing the 5A is a good opportunity to go for. Don't bother hit confirming this tool, it'll lead to death, but it's a good check tool to represent in neutral. The tool that you want to represent is Rev Blow. Rev Blow is a pretty good tool for overall beating fireballs and being a very cheeky approach tool to deny pokage and things of that nature. Rev Blow is by far one of the best tools in the game once you learn how to use it, but do be wary they can be anti-aired. So do keep an eye out, but do represent it if you're up against a zoner-like character. And people always talk about the placements. I recommend if you're fighting a zoner, have it immediately. If you're fighting anybody else, have it at that middle point. And if you feel like that the opponent is playing a character where you want to give them a surprise, like you know them, they're a pretty good player, put that last. Certainly helps. Your last neutral check tool will be Rev Super. Your Rev Super is deceptively great. Why? Because it's kind of like Kami level 3 in Street Fighter. If you've ever seen that play from Punk the God, you'll know he'll wait for a fireball opportunity representing that super. Same case with this super. It goes for fireballs and travels a good portion of the screen and deals a solid 40%. Also, neat thing about it, if you're in burnout, you're no longer in burnout. As the game puts it, overheat, the mechanic will make it so that disappears and you go back to 0. Getting into your aerials now. When it comes to aerials, Tizoc actually has some really good tools to use depending on different outcomes. Are they slower to the jump than you are, then heavy kick is a good long reaching option that will win that area. Are you both in the same airspace at the same time, the representing jump light punch, aka 5A, is also a very good poke for these area scenarios. Tizoc has quite good range when he's in the area, and in the corner, you can use the jumping heavy kick, aka 5D, for a jump in pressure opportunity. We've gone through your pokes and areas, time to go over your approaches, that way you know how to get in, because so far we've been stopping it. Tizoc has a great approach tools that are great for checking the opponent that make rash decisions. You want to use this to get in people's heads. First one is the elbow. Why do we represent the elbow? And that's because it's tricky anti-air. It's as simple as that. It's not an easy tool in anti-air. The elbow drop can be used if the opponent represents fireball a ton. You go over the fireball and get the hit. Leads to Oki on hit, where you have to either chase a roll or stay still to keep your Oki. It's up to you. The elbow drop on counter hit also leads to huge damage, and if you want the combo, again, skip to a later chapter. And the pickup is insanely easy, by the way. Can be whiff punished though, so don't get overzealous with this tool. The opponent can just walk back and whiff punish the elbow, and they can represent their anti-air if they get the timing down. So represent it, see what the opponent's doing, and if you realise, oh okay, they're doing a ton of anti-airs, I'm gonna chill on this tool a little bit. Or if you go like, oh, they're representing a ton of fireballs, I'm gonna use this tool a lot more. Safe duty pushback, so if it is blocked, you're fine, but don't assume it's your turn, because that can lead to deadly scenarios. The Lariat. The Lariat is an extremely committal, but hit tools on startup for huge counter hit pickups. So if you want to do this as a read, because elbow is a slower tool, you can hit some fireballs on startup. So for example, if you're fighting someone like Rock and he goes for a Potemkin, you can make this as a read as a preemptive strike to hit him before that fireball comes out. And if it's well spaced, on block this tool is actually safe on block, being at -2. The neat thing about this tool as well is that you can actually feign it by pressing the break tool. What's break? If you press light punch plus light kick, or 5A, 5B as the community calls it, you'll feint your lariat, stopping in front of the opponent, allowing for an SPD or a strike scenario. So this is good as a great mental stack. If you've been representing a ton of these elbows, a ton of these clotheslines, a ton of these lariats, a ton of these jump-ins or run-ins or checks or something like that, you could do this to get your opponent blocking, and then all of a sudden they realize, wait, what? Where's the clothesline? And then you grab them. So this is a great tool to represent a type of mental stack scenario. In terms of get-ins, you could also use Beak as a get-in, as represented earlier as a neutral poke, but as a get-in is also really good. But do be careful, as it is -6 up close, meaning it's punishable. Heavy suplex. Now I'm gonna be real, this tool is something that you use for the extreme mental stack, right? What does that mean? Mental stack is a tool that you represent when your opponent's no longer thinking about it. aka you've stacked so many options in your opponent's mind that one of them are going to slip out and you can represent it. It leads to really good if you do EX Lariat break. However, in any other scenario, despite the fact that this is a good neutral check tool, don't use it. Be chill on this tool, I mean it. Now, last section we're going to talk about Tizoc's anti-airs. Tizoc's anti-airs are great, but he has a problem, and that is he can't deal with anybody above his head. This gives him problems. Because in KOF and Fatal Fury, these types of games, short hops are by far one of the best approach tools in the game, as they allow for looping offense, aka jump resets that you'll see a ton in classic 2D fighters like Guilty Gear, KOF, or even Street Fighter at times. What can you do? Well, there's not a ton of options I actually have available. You can represent crouching heavy punch if they're at a distance, as it covers a very good angle. However, it leads to nothing on hit and it's not special cancelable, so this move is kind of redundant besides covering that airspace. You can represent light elbow if you want to cover someone trying to jump in front of you like the short hop, but it's very committal, and if just defended in the air or on the ground, that leads to them taking a punish. You can also represent beak, but the problem is if you're in the corner when you go for a beak, you'll beak out of the corner, meaning if the opponent isn't ready, you have swapped the corners, which is pretty great. You've got your own offense, yippee. However, if they're aware, it means they punish you with a throw and put you right back in there. You can also represent EX Icarus Crash, which is an anti-air command grab. You can do backdash into the EX Icarus Crash, and you can grab them covering anti-airs and the hop method that I was talking about a moment ago, which is very powerful. However, extremely committal, meaning if you're incorrect with this read, a heavy punish happens to you, and you're playing a game where your big body doesn't have increased health. So again, these options as your anti-airs, you've got to be really on point and use the correct one for the correct scenario. Short hops, go for elbow or EX SPD in the air, and if it's anything else, honestly represent crouching heavy punch or the beak. And now that we're done with neutral, anti-airs and all that good stuff, we need to talk about offense, and specifically your offensive mindset when playing the character. That way you understand why you're doing it when you're doing it. When playing Tizoc, it's like playing any other grappler, right? We gotta get in, we gotta friend throw, and when we get in, it's about showing that we will throw them or strike them for a 50-50. We want to condition the opponent to take the throw or kill them through striking them for jumping or backdashing. The mix is unreactable, meaning that it's a mix the opponent has to guess. The only issue is looking out for jumps. I recommend knowing your timing for catching jump. Once you get this down, you're able to get a full combo for a conversion. However, if you miss too late, they'll flip out, still giving you Oki, but it can mess up your flow. Representing feints is also a good way to open people up after going for big pokes like your heavy kick or your heavy punch. It's a good way to go straight into throw and represent that 50-50. Just know that 50-50 can come from anything, right? Can be Oki, could be a poke, could be a feint. If you understand the mindset of playing Tizoc, let's get into your offensive tools, starting off with the command grab, the SPD. Tizoc's SPD input, the Hurricane Special, is used as your key throw to open people up. It deals more and more damage with the stronger version you use. Heavy comes out faster but has weaker range, light comes out slower but has more range, and EX has decent reach, damage, comes out at the same speed as heavy, and can lead to Oki. Using EX Lariat Feint gives really solid Oki to set up for 50-50s. This is your main mix-up tool that you have to represent. With every EX SPD you do, you're able to knock down their health with massive chunks at a time. Remember what I said earlier? 3 of these kills an opponent. Close heavy kick. This is your next thing, right? If you don't represent throw, I recommend representing this. Close heavy kick, keep in mind, does also mean 5D, but I'll be saying heavy kick. This is your strike. Close heavy kick is a great pressure tool, +4 on block, and the special cancel, meaning that you can feint it to make it more plus, and this guarantees some scary pressure. When you get started with this tool, it's a great meaty tool for allowing for pressure, but this tool can be used to set up throws and even more stagger-like pressure. If you land a hit, link it with heavy punch for the combo, again, combos will be later on, and close heavy punch can do the same thing, but I recommend using heavy kick as your meaty tool. Heavy punch has all the same properties, except heavy kick does more damage and leads to more plus frames on hit and on block. Close light punch, aka 5A, can be used when you're close to the opponent, as it is very good on block and very good on hit, allowing to be linked for a lariat follow-up. Also good for setting up 50-50s and can be a safe meaty approach tool besides the heavy kick, which is more readable and understandable for a DP scenario. This one comes out very quickly so the opponent has to guess with a DP. This is great for staggering, it's a very safe option and leads to 50-50s. Essentially just a safer version of close heavy kick. Crouching light kick, or 2B, is another really good opening tool because it is Tizoc's low option that can lead to a 50-50 where you can either represent the low or his other tool, the overhead, with Rev plus C plus 5. So basically choose between the 5 to B and that will allow for some good offense. You're able to choose between an overhead and a low, and the low confirm leads to good damage and Oki in the corner. And the overhead can link into super if you've got the spacing down perfectly. Active to pun and the suplex are your best ways to open up the opponent in a weird manner, right? These tools are insanely reactable, but mixing up with a nice mental stack can mess up the opponent looking for either the elbow drop or the feints off stuff like lariat. The suplex can call out jumps if you go for the feint version, so you can go for an easy anti-air, and the active to pun is able to jump in, so if the opponent uses some type of defensive poke or some type of defensive fireball, you'll jump over it and land a command grab. However, this command grab does swap sides, so if you're using it in the corner, you'll put them in the corner. But if they're in the corner, now you're in the corner. In terms of offense, these tools are very good for opening up the opponent, but you do have to be careful, as they are very committal. Okay, time to get into one of the most subjective things when it comes to fighting games, and one of the hardest things to understand, and that's defense. This is absurdly hard for Tizoc due to a lack of a DP. You're probably wondering, why is this a big deal? And that's because the majority of the cast have a DP, meaning they can represent this good mental stack defensive option that'll get them out of any form of attack. That means that's something you have to pay attention to when you're running offense, by the way. Sometimes blocking out is the best way to go, but one thing you've got to keep in mind is that on defense, you gotta be so careful because you do not have this DP. You do not have a tool that the opponent always has to think about, meaning your opponent's going to get very overzealous and just run offense. This makes it very suffocating for Tizoc, so understanding how each of these tools can help you defend is extremely important, right? You can't just go like there's a catch-all answer to every scenario you'll be put in. That's impossible in a fighting game. But we do have some options that can negate some offensive options, and maybe a few that are put together. But yeah, let's talk about some easy ones that you can do to escape the corner. Just Defend is a massive defensive tool that you need to learn with Tizoc and actually grow in love. In this game, I recommend everybody learns how to do Just Defend guard cancel, but with Tizoc, it is absolutely necessary if you want to perform well on defense. With Just Defend, Tizoc can turn a meaty or stagger pressure into a corner swap into a turn. When blocking with Just Defend, you need practice using your Hercules throw after the Just Defend. To do this input, you press back or down back for the Just Defend, make sure to time it with the attack. Don't mash it, as it doesn't work. But do try to time it when you wake up, so when you get on your first few frames, practice that. Set the bot to do a meaty attack, and then Just Defend that. Don't guard cancel it just yet, just defend it. Wake up, Just Defend, that's it. And then afterwards, what you want to do is, after the Just Defend, you want to do quarter circle forward punch with either one. And it has to be instant, you can't buffer it, you need to go for it. And once you get good at this, all of a sudden you have a Just Defend that'll able to avoid meaties, staggers, and put the opponent into the corner for nice oki. By the way, once they've been hit by Hercules throw and you haven't done the EX version, you can do a light lariat to get -2 that'll catch a wake up attack or jump out. Or you can go for the suplex as your throw option to start the mental stack. Again, it's up to you. You can go crazy, but you cannot dash and you cannot represent a normal. It has to be lariat, or it has to be the suplex. Or elbow drop if you're feeling cheeky enough. You can also do Just Defend SPD, but I'm going to say this. This is difficult. This is not easy. This is something that you're rarely going to see. And in high level play, if you do see it, do know that is one of the highest level defensive plays that you can do with Tizoc that requires a ton of calculations and understanding. So don't worry if you can't do that. That'll take a ton of time. I'm still learning how to do that. But for now, quarter circle forward punch is your best bet to go. Quarter circle with A, C, or A plus C for the EX version is the way to go. Tizoc has been blessed with a 720 command grab that has iframes. That's right, you know Zangief's level 3, the Scam Super in Street Fighter 6? You have access to that as a level 1. This tool can be used on wake up to beat safe jumps and pressure scenarios. Doing either version has iframes, but the heavy version can be dealt to do a ton more damage. So use heavy if you want to end the round, but do keep in mind, you can lose to jump, so pay attention to your opponents. But it's a very good wake up option or a stagger option to get the hell out of there. But you gotta do a 720 input. Again, it's like a 360, but you gotta mash it. And after mashing that 720, press and hold the punch button for the first few frames of getting up. Because there's a really cool buffer in these games where if you hold punch, it'll actually cover the first like 10-ish frames of get up. Meaning pressing the button is absurdly easy compared to other fighting games. When it comes to Tizoc's defense, one problem it has is hops, like mentioned before. And like mentioned before, if you want to beat hops, you gotta go for a preemptive tool. Backdash EX Icarus Crash, which is your aerial throw, which is a quarter circle forward punch. Exit, you can do it off backdash, allowing you to use it as an air tool to escape the corner and put the opponent in the corner for a good chunk of change. I also recommend that if the opponent's doing short hops, go for light elbow. Again, this is a risky tool to go for because on whiff you get punished, and on block the opponent will be very close to you.
So I do recommend using these tools to try and get out the corner, to try and call out these hops, because hops are aggressive and very powerful in KOF like fighters, and especially in this Fatal Fury. It's insanely strong. But in terms of defense, these were the main ones that I found that I thought were absolutely necessary to playing this character. There tends to be a ton of options to think about, like we've got 4 main ones that will cover a ton. In general, you'll cover a ton of situations. You'll cover staggers, you'll cover like, offensive overheads and lows, and you'll also have access to fuzzy text as well if you do the just defense. About defense, time for the fun part that everybody tends to enjoy, the combos. Now, I will be honest, the combos that I've got are very basic. They're nothing too insane, they're not too crazy, and they won't trip you up. There might be some difficult things to learn, like feints, but you just gotta know with enough time, you will certainly get it. But yeah, for this part, I will not yap, I will not say anything, I'll let the combos play with no audio besides the tunes. Do enjoy. Yeah guys, that is the end of the guide. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe, it'd be greatly appreciated. always try and work on content, and for Tizoc, this is a character that I look forward to really diving deeper into. This is a guide for just picking up the character, learning him to a pretty solid level. You won't be like #1 in the world, but you'll learn him to a pretty good degree. This will certainly help you. This will give you the recipes. In fact, I always say this about every guide. I am giving you the ingredients. Now it's time to make the recipe. You know what all your ingredients do. You know what situations they can be used in. But now it's time to apply these ingredients, right? Do onions go well in the broth? Damn right they do. Let's make that recipe. Let's go crazy. But yeah, guys, hope you liked and subscribed and all that good stuff. And I hope your Tizocs begin to flourish in the sky as the beautiful bird I know you can be. But peace out, fellas, and have a good one. See ya.